once again, the smartest, hello, once again, the Greg Proops Film Club convenes here in Hollywood's most awesome film confabulation, the Los Feliz 3, at the American Cinematheque for tonight's 1971 classic by Alan J. Pakula, Klute. Here we go. This is where you applaud. It's a podcast. It's a podcast, and I'm a comedian, but you're in safe ground tonight. Because I think comedian and podcast right now are synonymous with right-wing dickhead Nazi piece of shit. If I'm putting too fine a point on it, I'm sorry. I try to approach subtlety and intellect, but sometimes you just got to lay it on the line there. It's so great to have everybody join us here tonight for a celebration of film and a really, really groovy picture from 1971. The 70s were such a boss decade for film, and during this fascist takeover, it's a really great time to lose yourself for an hour or two and remind us that every act of enjoyment is an act of revolution. God damn it. And yeah, here we are. I think Jane Fonda might agree with that. Jane Fonda, I saw about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Yeah, I'm including myself right away. I want to keep your attention. We went to a political rally. My wife, Jennifer, programs all the films here. And not all of the films at the Cinematheque, but all of the films on the Greg Proops Film Club. And she chose this picture tonight, but we happened to go to a political event about 3 or 4 weeks ago for Sidney Comlager Dove, who's a congressperson here in Los Angeles. And Jane Fonda was the guest speaker there. So we go, and there she is, and fantastic, right? She's like 4.5 feet tall, and yeah, and she had awesome sort of Game of Thrones silver hair. And she looked so super bitchin', and her posture was amazing. I'm hunched like Chuck Schumer. I mean, like, no matter how much stretching I do, at the end of the day, it's always like this. We talked to Jane Fonda, and she seemed amenable to our offer. We're going to go forward from now on and see what Jane Fonda can do for us. And she was as rigid as a Polish lancer. And yeah, her posture was amazing, like a tetherball pole. And thank you. That was for people who grew up in the 70s. The rest of you can Google tetherball on the way home. It's not obscene, I assure you. It was a horrible, horrible Lord of the Flies debilitating game that we played on the playground, where everybody stood in a line waiting to go have their turn, and it was a ball that was on a rope, and you hit it, and it spun around like that, and eventually hit you in the head and knocked your glasses off. My glasses off. In any case, there she was, and she got up, and this is what I love about politics in Los Angeles. It was a lot of rich, caring liberals, and there was some sort of subset of like environmental thing going on as well as raising money for Sidney Comlager Dove. And so Jane Fonda got up and she went, "I am 89 years old." And the place erupted into cheers because she looked so goddamn great. People just went, "Yay! You're 89, you look awesome. We all have something to live for." It was as if a light was pouring off her head. And we got to talk to her for a few minutes, and she was straight up, you know. That was the awesome thing. She was like that, and super snappy, and really, engaging and funny. And so I was wildly impressed. Mind you, I grew up watching Jane Fonda, and I didn't follow her around, but I saw her in the movies and stuff. And I started going to movies in the 60s, and Cat Ballou when I was a kid. Now, a lot of you are younger than me and probably don't remember Cat Ballou, and it was sort of the beginning of her massive stardom. It's a Western, and it's also a comedy. Yeah, you heard me. And thank you. It's a comedy Western, okay? Like the Apple Dumpling Gang. And she plays this super hot outlaw. And the reason why it's such a worthy movie, for several reasons, is one, Lee Marvin won the Academy Award for playing a couple roles in it, where he plays a drunken gunfighter, and he also plays the evil brother of the drunken gunfighter, who's a non-drunken gunfighter. And Jane Fonda plays a woman who's put upon her. Her dad's killed by the evil gunfighter, and so she hires Lee Marvin, the drunken gunfighter, to fight him. And it's Nat King Cole's last movie. Nat King Cole and Debbie Kay are the singing chorus in the movie. And it's so quiet right now. Fucking comedy podcast. And I really do want that reaction every 15 to 30 seconds, like a stand-up show. And I get the feeling right now everyone's looking at me like I'm a chameleon that just crawled out of your Caesar salad or something. Like, thank you. One person got that. Everyone else was like, why would a chameleon crawl out of a salad? Because it would be unexpected and horrible. And you're all looking at me like, Cat Ballou. It's really fun. And she's super sexy in it. And this movie is in the middle of a period of Jane Fonda's career where she was an unbelievable star, like just a powerful giant movie star. From about then on, because after Cat Ballou comes Barefoot in the Park with Robert Redford. And Jane Fonda is quoted as saying, and God rest his soul, he was such a wonderful star, that she could not keep her hands off Robert Redford. Yeah, I think a lot of us feel the same way. He seemed like a little ginger throw rug that you had to snuggle in. And anytime he's on screen, he's so bitchin', McChicken, and his smile is irresistible, his voice. The fact that he had highlights in every movie, including Jeremiah Johnson, where he's trapped in the wilderness for years by himself, and he still has bitchin' highlights, and a blowout. And you're like, that is so cool that you did that all by yourself in the mountains as a trapper. And a perfectly groomed beard, and an unbelievable, like Beverly Hills smile, right? So Jennifer was at the Gelsons in West Hollywood once. There's something to this story. Although I think you should start almost all stories with, I was in the parking lot at the Gelsons in West Hollywood. And she was leaving the parking lot with her groceries, and Robert Redford came in at about 125 miles an hour in a green Porsche and almost killed her. And she went like this to him, and he went, and gave her the Redford. And she went, it's okay. It's all right that you almost killed me. And I thought, yeah, that's how he lived his life, right? He so lived his life with people going, oh my God, it's Robert Redford. I don't care what just happened. You may recall that he tried to audition for the movie The Graduate for the Dustin Hoffman role, who's the rejected, short, bandy-legged guy who has an affair with Anne Bancroft and screws her over by having an affair with her daughter. And Mike Nichols, who directed the picture, said to him, I don't think you're right for the role. And Robert Redford was like, well, I can do the role, right? You know, this guy who just got out of college and he doesn't know where he's going. And Mike Nichols said, have you ever struck out with a girl? And Robert Redford went, what do you mean? Yeah. And he didn't get the part. He's like, you don't even know what I'm talking about. You tried it on a girl, it didn't work. He's like, I don't know. That just didn't happen in his life. So Jane Fonda couldn't keep her hands off him. I have no idea what happened, but we can all imagine, and it's probably something we want to think about later, after the movie's over, when you want to have some night thoughts. And then she made a picture called, she was in Barefoot in the Park, and then a brand new picture that's really wild, but she was in a picture called They Shoot Horses, Don't They? Which is a really, really grim movie about a dance marathon during the Depression. And it's not a happy picture. Then after that, there was a lot of politics. She's always been a really political person. And because we're an entertainment show here, we're gonna skip over all that part. And we're gonna skip over all of her relationships with men, including Ted Turner. Are you fucking kidding? And we're gonna keep to the awesome point of this, which is she was a tremendous actress. This movie for her was a giant, she hadn't made a picture in a couple years. And this picture was a big hit for her. And Alan J. Pakula was a producer, and had produced a lot of movies, but I think this is only like the second movie he directed. And it's the first of the Paranoia trilogy. The Paranoia trilogy is Parallax View with Warren Beatty, which is a JFK conspiracy movie. And then the third one is All the President's Men with Dustin Hoffman and Robert Redford, who I assume Dustin Hoffman couldn't keep his hands off of. And I know that Jason Robards couldn't. So why are they the Paranoia trilogy? Because Klute is not just a thriller and a murder mystery and whatnot, but also you'll see when you watch it how it's shot and the awesome paranoia that was thrilling through America at that point. A little bit like now, but in a different way. Because people are like, oh my God, it's never been worse than it is now. In a lot of ways, it hasn't been worse. But just think about it. If you weren't a white person, it's always been this bad. And two, if you lived through the 60s and early 70s, it was pretty fucking horrible. So, but did we sit around and mope? No, we fucking went to the movies every goddamn week like we're doing here today. And that's how you get through these things. One, fascism has to be fought person by person. And two, actor by actor, for God's sakes. And three, studio by studio, but we'll get to that in a second. And you have to, there still has to be art, there still has to be expression, and there still has to be beauty and poetry and metaphor. And Klute is a feminist movie about a prostitute. She didn't want to do the picture. And this you'll love. She said to Alan J. Pakula when he came to her with the movie, why don't you get Faye Dunaway? Right? Because Faye Dunaway's terse and frank and you know, Jane Fonda hadn't made a lot of like message type movies up till this one. Her friend Barbara Dean, who was a jazz singer, said to her, the script gives you a chance to go deep, and if you can go deep into any human being, that's feminism. And so she made the picture. She hung out with prostitutes and call girls and madams and whatnot to soak up the atmosphere. And the thing she said was, that struck me about the girls in particular, there was no light in their eyes. It was like their soul had been taken out of them. She also said that not one John showed interest in her. So here we are in this moment in history, in this week in this moment in history, with the giant sword of Damocles hanging over our head, that we all know what I'm talking about right now. The fucking Epstein files and the fact that we've reached the point where reality has struck the rich. And this is an amazing point. In one way, you have to be grateful that you're alive now, because in 30 years' time, when you're sitting around in that pool of alkali warming your hands on the garbage fire, you'll be able to tell everyone that, God damn it, you lived through this part and that it was just as fucked up as everybody said it was. And I'm not certain there'll be a movie. Maybe there'll be a great, you know, Seth Rogen, Adam Sandler movie that'll come out that'll really explain the era. But we'll have our special memories of this night. And because believe me, the people who came through the 60s and 70s are like, yeah, the idea of fascism taking over the country was not new. The idea of the government watching you all the time was not new. The idea of the government committing violence against the people that it didn't like is not a new idea at all. It's just accelerated now, and we have someone so crass and hideous performing it that it makes us on edge all the time and difficult to sleep, which is why we're here to enjoy this goddamn movie, and here we go. So, she spent all this time getting into the movie. She worried about whether it was a feminist project. But when you see the movie, I think you'll see that this isn't a movie that lets men off the hook. This isn't one of those Good Time Charlie movies, because Alan J. Pakula is a director of some rare insight. And not only did he make this, but he made Norma Ray. Oh, that was Marty Ray. I'm jumping over. All the President's Men. And All the President's Men, if you've ever seen it, takes place in newsrooms, but also in dark alleys, garages, and living rooms and whatnot. And this is a movie that takes place in dark apartments and street corners all over New York City. You wouldn't even know it's New York some of the time you're watching this picture. And the cinematographer, Gordon Willis, right after he made this picture, made The Godfather and Godfather 2. So it has that unbelievably awesome, rich 70s feel to it. And Alan J. Pakula took a lot of chances, you know. Jane Fonda came to him and was like, the psychiatrist character that her character Bree goes to see was a man, and she convinced him to change it to a woman. So when you see the picture, you'll see how resonant the scenes are with her and her psychiatrist, because it's really one of a few movies where you get to see what a prostitute's like. Not that it's shot all from her point of view, but let me put it this way. We're at a giant reckoning now, and the reckoning is all about women haven't been listened to. Abso-fucking-lutely. The reason that we have Quiet Quiet Piggy in office is that no one's listening to women, or that the electorate chose, the white electorate chose 3 times in a row to vote for a pig because women are still in the same position they were in 1971 in so many ways. It's 1,000,000 times better than it was. Believe me, I was alive then. It is 1,000,000 times better than it was. There was a giant STD billboard on Santa Monica on the way here that had a person with a swab in their mouth that said, "Say ah." That didn't happen in 1971, you guys. And the crowd's gone completely quiet. It's not to be as grim as I can be, but to be as hopeful. Because if we made it through then, and Vietnam, and Richard Nixon, and Watergate, and the CIA, and all the things that they were up to, and the heroin dealing, and the back rooms, and the corruption, we're going to make it through this. Now, whether you like Gavin or Newsom or not, Gavin and Newsom, both of them, the twins, I adore Gavin and I love Newsom. Whether you adore him or not is irrelevant to me, because I know I'm right. And that's why I have a show. You don't want anyone getting up here and quibbling. You want unequivocal opinions, and here's one right now. He said in Europe a week and a half ago to one of the German leaders, "You have to remember what's going on now in America is temporary." Except he said it like Gavin Newsom, so you have to remember what's going on now in America is temporary. 45% of the people don't do it, and 30% of the people do. But there she is, Jane Fonda. She's a feminist. She's an actress. She's a producer. And she tried to get it together with a movie called Klute. And Klute's it's part of the Paranoid trilogy. And then we had All the President's Men. So he's right. It's only temporary. This doesn't last forever. COVID didn't last forever. You lived through that. You're going to live through this. And there's a light at the end of the goddamn tunnel. Because there's a reaction to every action. And the action now is fascism and keeping women down. And the reaction to that will be a woman president. And hopefully 2 or 3 women presidents in a row. You may not have escaped your attention that during this last year, they've elected 2 women governors, 2 women senators who are black, and several women mayors, and a woman governor in Arizona as well, and the mayor of Detroit was just elected, who's also a black woman. So there is a reaction to what's going on now. Don't think nothing's happening because you feel sad and frustrated or you're on social all day or whatever. Loads of stuff is going on, and they're not winning everywhere. You may have noticed that they're not the most organized group that's ever lived. I'm not promising anything's going to get better in the near term, because it's not. But we do have a midterm coming up at the end of this year, and you are going to see a lot of changes. How do I know this? Because they wouldn't be freaking out so hard and doing the things they're doing. And I don't know, the piggy, quiet piggy the other night at the State of the Union maybe was the lowest point in American discourse that a president has ever taken part in. And I include when he was trying to sell the Tesla on the lawn of the White House. The other night was a real, and so it only has to go up from there. There was a press conference last week, and it was about Planned Parenthood. And Governor Newsom was there with his wife, right? And she said this at this press conference. They were talking about Planned Parenthood, and it was the 2 of them, and reporters were there, and no one asked any questions. And the whole subject of the press conference was the war on women. And this is what Jennifer Newsom said, Jennifer Seabell Newsom. She walked out and no one had asked a question of all the press that was there. "We find it incredulous. We have Planned Parenthood here, and women are 51% of the population. And the majority of the questions, all of these questions, have really been about other issues. It's fascinating. We have this incredible women's caucus, all these allies, and you're not asking about this. It happens over and over again. You wonder why we have such a horrific war on women in this country, and that these guys are getting away with it, because you don't seem to care." And that really happened. It happened 2 weeks ago. You might not have heard about it because it wasn't on telly or whatever, and it was on social media, but not everybody watched it. And I thought it was a really pertinent thing to say, because today, the merger between Warner Brothers and Paramount and Netflix and all that was going down, right? They gave up at Netflix, and they're going to let Paramount buy. Well, as you know, Paramount's owned by David Ellison, whose father owns him, Larry Ellison, who owns Oracle. And now this is turning into the scene from Network, which we showed 3 months ago, where Howard Beale goes, "The Arabs want to buy this television station." Well, what has that got to do with the price of rice? Right? Well, the people backing David Ellison and Larry Ellison to buy Netflix, and they already own CBS and TikTok and Paramount, and they want to have CNN, right? That's what the goal is on this. Are Qatar and Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. So I'm going to make the same speech that Howard Beale made. This is a really good time to let Rob Bonta here know, he's the Attorney General of California, or even your local Congress people or whatever, that you're not that happy about this deal. Why shouldn't you be happy about it? Because when right-wing fascists take over every media outlet, it gets shittier. You may have noticed how, well, you weren't watching CBS anyway, but now you're really not watching it. And that they've gone off the deep end. When Anderson Cooper quit 60 Minutes, that's the shallow end of the pool, you guys. And that, it's so quiet in here. It either means I'm a wildly effective speaker, or this is having the exact opposite effect that I wanted it to have on everyone. So let's try another tack. Watching the world go down the way it's going down is, you have to be stoic about it in some ways, because everything's not your responsibility, and you don't have to have a fucking opinion about everything. On the other hand, it was Nina Simone's birthday, and Nina Simone said, an artist's responsibility is to reflect the times they live in. Well, I'm a comedian. I may not be an artist, but I'm a craftsperson, goddammit. And I'm trying to reflect the times we live in. This movie is an encapsulation of what a prostitute's life would be like in a fictionalization in 1971, written by two men. Right now, we're here to have this movie experience and to celebrate the awesomeness that is Jane Fonda, who went on to fantastically produce 9 to 5, written by Colin Higgins, who was a gay writer, who also wrote Harold and Maude and The Best Little Horse in Texas. He only wrote 3 pictures. Jane Fonda produced fucking 9 to 5 and got Dolly Parton and Lily Tomlin to do it, and made a comedy there. And this is, 9 years after this picture. She's done so much empowering women, and so many great roles. Strong women, sad women, women that were alcoholics, women that need help. And that's where the power of all this comes in. Without someone like Jane Fonda, where do we go, right? She has to make that statement so that we can be where we are now, for real. And where we are now is, we're about to overthrow the fucking fascist regime. It's gonna take a little while, and we're not gonna do it at the movie theater, but we have to have breaks to fucking enjoy ourselves and wallow in metaphor and poetry, because metaphor and poetry are what keep us going. That's what feeds our souls. You can't worry about what's going on in the world every second of the goddamn day. What's gonna happen is gonna happen. And, to reiterate, this is temporary. This too, it was George Harrison's birthday as well this week. And he said, all things must pass. And God damn it, this is gonna pass. And yeah, you're goddamn right. And to have an artist like Alan J. Pakula, who made these kind of insightful movies, like All the President's Men and Klute, and The Parallax View, which is wildly paranoid, but completely accurate. In my opinion, if you're not paranoid, you're kind of missing out a little bit, because paranoia is what keeps you on your toes. And the crowd's gone quiet again. Next time I'm just gonna serve up like 30 minutes of dick jokes. And then I'm joking, of course. I'd never do that. So here we are at this picture and at this juncture. And we're gonna celebrate the awesomeness that is Jane Fonda and the 1971 picture. By the way, in case you think things were different and things were more intellectual in 1971, the #1 movie of the year was Billy Jack. Klute was the 13th highest grossing movie of the year. Billy Jack was the #1 movie, which is about a white guy who tries to defend an Indian tribe, and the police kill a bunch of innocent children and whatnot, and then he has to lay waste to them barefoot doing kung fu. And he wins. And he wears a cowboy hat. And then he went on to make several other Billy Jack movies, the names of which I cannot remember, but I saw them all because we had marijuana in the 70s. And now I give you, from 1971, Jane Fonda and Alan J. Pakula's classic, also with Donald Sutherland and Roy Scheider, Klute.